Hi, and welcome to the Changing Perspectives podcast, the show where we discuss a variety of topics including grief, parenting, health and wellness, and relationships. Join us and explore a number of changing perspectives. We're your hosts, Jenni and Josh Brennan. Hey, Jenni.
Hi.
What's happening?
Nothing.
I'm proud of you. You answered that question correctly.
Yeah.
It's episode 24. We're back with everybody. Oh, nice. 24. That's good. Were you planning that?
No, that just happened in my head right then and there.
Naturally to you.
Yep.
Jack Bauer, love that show.
Oh yeah, that was a good show.
We tried
until
to watch.
It wasn't.
I know. Well, we tried to watch the new version, but I don't think we ever finished it.
I don't remember there being a new version, so I guess it didn't have an impact on me.
Yeah, they tried to revive it it's like the next 24. I don't know. I forget the name of it.
It was not Kiefer Sutherland?
No. Different group of people.
Was there that girl? The
Chloe?
Chloe. Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
Or Marshall?
I remember being...
Or was Marshall Alias?
Marshall was Alias.
I always confused the two of those. Okay, we're...
Late 90s, early 2000s spy television. Oh, and The Unit. We're big Unit.
Yeah.
Not Randy Johnson, the pitcher.
That was good TV.
Yeah. That was great TV.
What? Randy Johnson?
Yeah.
What?
His nickname is The Unit.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. None of that is what we're talking about today.
None of it. Well, listen, I gave you a break the last episode. I didn't do this one I'm about to do on this episode. So I'm gonna say, don't forget to like us, review us, and follow us, everybody. Check out our previous episodes. We had a lot of fun. Episode 23 talking about participating in the love game, the 20-question love game put out by the Gottman Institute. I won, by the way. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet and want to see me become the victor,
because you cheated,
I did not cheat.
Answered questions ahead of time.
That's not cheating. You didn't do what you were supposed to do.
I think that my answers were more authentic.
Well, I think the best thing to come out of that episode is the new hashtag, I'm a cat.
Meow.
Yeah. Listen, email us, message us. Check out the pinned post on Dizzy Bird Studios on Facebook, facebook.com/Dizzy Studios.
Facebook.
Is that what I said? Mm-hmm. I was hoping you didn't hear that.
I heard it.
Facebook.com/Dizzy Studios. Check out the listener submission, listener questions, pinned post for your chance to hear your comment over the air. We have some great upcoming content. We have some guest spots in some other shows, like the Pop Culture Cosmos, and some interviews we've got planned as well. So stay tuned for lots of fun stuff coming your way. So Jenni, what are we going to talk about today?
We are attempting to tackle the topic of parenting, which, if I'm being completely transparent, I don't know what right I have to talk about, because lately I'm feeling like I am failing at all aspects of parenting.
Well,
and sometimes when you feel that way, that is something you should lean into, because I'm probably not the only person feeling this way right now. So
right.
I feel like sometimes the universe, sometimes I feel like the universe is sending me messages, and there are things I have to talk about or think about or reflect on. And I wrote this article kind of comparing parenting to paddleboarding a few years ago, and all weekend I kept seeing references to paddleboarding. The hotel we stayed at for the baseball tournament was giving paddleboard lessons on a lake or pond. I think they were free complimentary paddleboard lessons.
Were they?
Yeah. Well, you didn't read the...
well, we didn't have a lot of time at
but
the actual resort.
One of my favorite parts about staying in a hotel, especially sort of like a non-chain or a small like boutique-y hotel, is reading about the hotel. So I was reading the history of the hotel while in the room. Oh, there's Everett. We left his chain on because we thought he would be settled today.
He's not settled at all.
Anyways, they talked about their services, and one of those was paddleboarding. So I feel like there was this reminder to this sort of imagery that I have about paddleboarding. Yeah. So a few years ago, when I was sitting at a beach with some other moms and our children, we were talking about paddleboarding. For some reason, it came up, probably because the boys were running around trying to paddleboard. And one of the moms said to me, "Oh, Jenny, do you paddleboard?" And I laughed and I laughed because the image of that to me was quite funny,
That's pretty
because
funny.
I can barely balance myself while walking, let alone being on a
No.
board on the water. And also, if you listened to last week's episode or Monday's episode, I'm terrified of sharks. So
Yes, you are.
the thought of just being on a board,
That's like just a shark invitation. You
yeah,
must think.
especially
Even-
here in like Massachusetts where we have seals on Cape Cod. Apparently, when you're on a paddleboard or a surfboard, you look like a seal. So
Right, but a lot of folks paddleboard not in the ocean, like on a pond or a river or something.
oh, is that true?
Yeah, it's true.
Oh, I did not know that.
Now, I have never paddleboarded. It looks awesome. It looks probably a lot easier than it actually is. It's probably a lot harder than it looks, is what I'm trying to say.
Mm.
Right. It's supposed to be a great workout, like a good core
Yes.
workout.
So after I was asked that question, I started thinking about paddleboarding and researching it a little bit more. And I
Yeah.
came across this article from Green Water Sports, Green Mountain. It's not Green Mountain, that's Vermont, and they make coffee.
Green Water Sports.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And they had sort of 10 tips for new paddleboarders. And as I read it, I thought all of these tips can kind of be applied to parenting. So what
I really like this article.
oh, thanks.
It's funny. You do a real nice job connecting the similarities between learning this, I guess, sport or activity with the struggles or pitfalls of parenting, potential pitfalls.
Well, there's this. So as I was thinking about paddleboarding, and even just the image, what you just said, that it's probably a lot harder than it looks.
Yeah.
I think people that are not parents probably could say the same thing. Like it looks to an outsider who's never parented, and if I go back to pre-parenting Jenny, you know, my 3-year-old's going to be potty
I
trained
got
before
this.
they get to 3
Yeah.
years old, and I'm going to manage the teenage years really well, and I'm going to manage all of this stuff. I'm going to have a great bedtime routine, and blah blah blah.
Right.
And then when you're actually in it, you realize it is far more difficult than you thought. Sort of similar to paddleboarding. So there's 10 tips that have been adapted from Green Water Sports about paddleboarding that I think we can apply to parenting
Yeah.
in terms of finding out how to balance, get more balance in your life.
I guess that's what it is about paddleboarding. You need good balance.
You need
That's
good
what-
balance. And I think
works
that's what
your
it is
core
about
and all that.
parenting is you need good balance. And that's why I was open to recording this podcast for this week, because I'm feeling out of balance in my parenting approach right now. And I'm hoping, sort of on a selfish way, that this will will shift my focus a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think
Everett
people.
is very bored.
Everett is making his presence known.
He is not happy that we're
The
talking about
role of
parenting
Pixie
humans.
today is being played by Everett.
Mm.
Listen, I think that people you see images and videos out there on social media of people on paddle boards. They all look great, right? They all look like, I mean, nobody.
Yeah, they're just like you never see images of people
Yeah.
falling and stumbling and
Right.
you know, yelling backwards at like their partner on another paddleboard that they're not helping them, right? They're just
Right,
gliding beautifully
And
along.
paddleboards are big. Like I've seen images of people with like their dogs on it with them and their kids, and I've even seen our buddy from Get Burley, Mike, do yoga on a paddleboard. Remember he had put that video
That's
out?
cool. How can you
Yeah.
relate that to parenting?
I'm just saying what we see when we see some people on paddleboards. They look amazing. They look like they've got it all together.
Gotcha.
Right.
Well, all right. So I guess when we see images of parenting sort of in social media, it sort of seems like people have it all together.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And clearly we do not have anything together right now, because right now there's helicopters circling our house.
I
That
think
just
someone's
started.
mowing the lawn outside.
No, that's a helicopter
Is that a
circling our house.
helicopter?
Yeah. The dogs are crazy.
Jeez.
So if we were on a paddleboard right now, we would be sinking.
Falling off.
We'd be in the water. Yeah. So, all right. So what's the first tip? Do you want to tell us what the first tip
The
is
first tip
and how we can approach it connected?
is use a leash.
Right.
Tip number 1, use a leash.
So
What does
when
that
you're,
mean?
I guess when you're on a paddleboard, it means stay connected to your paddleboard. And so when I think about applying this to parenting, I don't mean an actual leash. Although, listen, if you've got little kids and you're somewhere and they run away, you can put them on a leash. I think
Yeah.
I pre-parenting Jenny judged you and would be like, well, no, maybe like high school Jenny.
Yeah.
Once I started working in like preschool and doing home-based services for early intervention, I understood the need for leashes.
Right, right.
So if you need to leash your children, go ahead and leash them.
Yeah.
No, but I'm talking about like, what are your lifelines? Because I think as parents,
Mm.
we all need lifelines. So I sort of interpret that leash as, what's your lifeline? Because in paddleboarding, your leash connects you, keeps you connected to your paddleboard. So what connects you to this sort of challenge of parenting? What kind of keeps you connected and safe, essentially? What can
Right,
you
right.
what can you sort of tether yourself to? Who can you tether yourself to?
So it's maybe not just people, but other resources or other
Yeah.
things that make you feel grounded.
Yeah, and
Right.
other like components that you don't want to sort of lose along the way. Like you don't want to lose your paddleboard.
Right.
Are there like elements of your personality or your identity that you don't want to lose along the way? So what can you really kind of hold on to as you're moving through parenting?
Right. Well, I don't know. I mean, that's a big. You can hold on to friendships, other adult relationships, other parents
Yeah.
that are going through the same sort of thing. You can lean on coworkers. You can tether yourself to your work,
Yeah.
right?
I think a lot of parents struggle with maintaining friendships with people who are not parents. And so there's a lot of parents that, as they're sort of moving through stages of parenting, kind of feel like they're drifting away from friends who are not parenting
Yeah.
or who are parenting at different stages. And so I guess it's important to kind of think about that, to stop sometimes and reflect, like, who's sort of drifting away from me, and maybe, or I'm drifting away from them, and who do I sort of need to retether myself to?
Right, because parenting is scary,
Oh,
hard,
terrifying.
unpredictable, and equally amazing and rewarding.
Right, right.
And so you're not on an island. We'll keep the ocean water theme going.
Yeah.
You're not on an island, and it's helpful to realize that.
Yes. So think about that. You know, who or what do you need to tether yourself to?
Yeah.
That maybe you've become untethered to, or that you just really want to kind of maintain your connection to. I also think if you're co-parenting with a partner, it's important for you to find ways to sort of stay connected. So,
Yes.
like in our situation,
Yes.
it's important that we stay tethered to each other. Right.
And we're physically tethered to each other via microphone wires right now.
That
so
is
we're
true.
We're doing a good job at that.
That's true. Correct.
Okay, so should we move on to tip number 2?
Yes. So tip number 1 was use a leash.
Okay. So tip number 2 is make sure your paddle is the right way.
Yeah, so apparently paddles are shaped kind of differently for paddleboarding, and it's
Okay.
not just like one side is the right, like both, it's not universal that, you know, both sides of the paddle are right. You actually have to be facing your paddle a certain way, and it has to be the correct way.
Okay.
So there are wrong ways to parent, right? And I'm not just talking about like my theories versus your theories. I'm talking about for you and your child, there can be wrong ways to parent. And so sometimes it's worth checking, are you facing your paddle the right way?
Right.
Right? You know, are there
Yeah.
things, do you maybe need to adjust your paddle? Do you maybe need to sort of turn it the other way? Do you need to sort of recheck? So sometimes I think we can kind of get sort of lost in the weeds with our parenting approach.
Right. Well, is there a wrong way to eat a Reese's?
No.
No.
Although, if like me, they make you sick, you probably shouldn't eat them, even though you really love them.
That's so worth it. Reese's are worth it.
You bought me some the other night at the hotel
Yes.
because you did like a Cumbies run after the
Yep.
pool, and that was what you picked out for me because I didn't go in because I was still in my bathing suit. You went in and you got Reese's for me, and I thought, these are going to make me sick.
but
I
it was
ate
worth
them.
it, right? Yeah.
Yes. So
Anyway, I think a lot of people maybe compare their parenting to what they're used to, right? Or what they see on social media or what they're used to from when they were raised.
Mhm.
What, you made the analogy is are people using new paddles, or paddles have been developed better, new technology versus old paddles, right?
Right. So that
I struggled with that analogy.
You really did. I don't know how well this is translating. I mean, are you here with us right now?
I'm here.
Okay. Yes. So what I think you're trying to say is paddles can be sort of there can be advancements all the time, and just because there was a great paddle 20 years ago or 5 years ago doesn't mean that that's the best way now.
Well, we see that on social media a lot, right? Like people post things like, oh, when I was a kid, this is how I was parented, and we just came in when we were called, and this and that, and a lot of that is true. I think a lot of that means a lot to folks. It's sort of sentimental, but I think it's tough to compare parenting now.
Yeah, you know what? I read, was it a meme or was it an article really recently, within the past couple of days, that let's see, the methods under which like you were parented, your parents were raising you for a world which no longer exists.
Yes.
So the methods that they
That's
used,
good.
right, worked for the world that you were growing up in. I don't mean your parents specifically. I mean like collectively.
Right.
That for the world that existed at that time. So we live in a very different world now.
Yes, we
even
do.
parenting teenagers, it's way different now to be a teenager than it was when we were teenagers in the 90s. Like it is a completely different world. And so the paddles that might have worked back then might not work now. There might be more effective, efficient paddles now. But also maybe maybe you just thought you were using the paddle the right way and you're not. It's worth it to sort of check in sometimes with others. Hey, am I using this paddle the right way?
Yeah.
Who are those people you can kind of check in with? Are they friends? Is it like a therapist? Is it a parenting book? Is it parenting blogs? Is it other people on social media? But maybe you should sometimes check and make sure your paddle is facing the right way, that you're kind of using the right end of the paddle.
And lean into the fact you are gonna make mistakes, right?
Sure, yeah.
And it's okay, because we're human. Your kids are human. They're gonna make mistakes.
I'm sure. Listen, I'm not a paddleboarder, but I'm sure sometimes they might be like, "Oops, I turned the paddle the wrong way."
Right.
It's okay. Just flip it over.
Exactly. Okay.
So use a leash. Make sure your paddle is the right way.
And we're on to tip number 3, which is face the right way.
Yeah, apparently there's like a front and a back, and you should be facing the correct way on your paddleboard. And I thought of that in relation to parenting, is that I think a lot of us can kind of live in the past. We can kind of look backwards, look behind us, and look at all the mistakes that we made, even just on a day-to-day basis. So many people at the end of the day go home and lay down, and at the end of the night, that's what they think of, is all the things they did wrong, all the things they wish they would have done differently, all the ways that they feel like they messed up as parents that day. I think that's important, because hopefully that can help sort of correct what you do the next time.
What is the analogy or the thing you said the other day? Shoulding all over yourself?
Yes, shoulding. Yeah. That kind of, I should have done this, I shouldn't have done that. But it's important that you don't face that way all the time. You've got to face forward. You've got to have hope. You've got to sort of look forward to what's going to come. Right. So making sure that you're really facing the right way.
Well, I think that's important. I mean, again, we go back to, are you going to face the wrong way with parenting sometimes? Yeah. And it's okay, because you have your leashes, right? Your folks that you can tether yourself to. You can check to see if you're using the paddles the right way, and you can check to see if you're going backwards.
Right, exactly.
And lean into it, own it, and learn from it.
Yes.
Right. Listen, I think that if we actually tried to paddleboard, we'd be pretty good if we remembered all these tips. We should try it. I think it's on my bucket list.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
I will paddleboard in a pond.
That's true.
As long as it's not in Florida where there could be gators.
Gators and sharks.
Gators are also scary for me.
The top of Jenny's fear list. Okay, so that brings us to tip number 4, which is paddle with your core.
Yes. So when we're thinking about your parenting, what is at the core of your parenting? When we're talking about sort of physical fitness and being on a paddleboard, core is sort of the center of your strength, right? Like you're tightening your
Yes.
abs and you're kind of pulling in everything tight at your core. It's really kind of your center, your foundation. So
Right.
what is that for you as a parent?
You have
What?
to define it for yourself. Well,
Right.
for me, you're asking me?
Well, I guess it was sort of a rhetorical question.
Well, there was a big pause.
There was, because you didn't say anything.
You had your therapist pause.
I did.
You
Silence.
had your silence. Yeah. I know your tricks.
Don't just say something.
All right.
Sit there. I was
Okay.
making you more comfortable with silence.
You were, and I was like,
Yeah.
what do I say? I don't
So-
know what my core is.
Oh, are you going to share it?
I don't know. I have to think about it. Like, what is your strongest muscle as a parent? Boy, I think that I always sort of rely for me on the sort of skills that I learned as a preschool teacher. Actually, like trying to get down to the children's levels and I don't know, try to connect with them at a real level. Don't talk down to them. I think that's part of what I rely on. This is all just off the cuff here, so I have no idea how
I
it sounded.
didn't
but
see a preschool teacher at our dinner table tonight.
No, because it's tough to be a preschool teacher to a 13-year-old who is taller than me.
True.
Right.
So, but what's your core? If you're saying that's the core of your parenting,
Yeah.
how can you sort of get back to that? How can you sort of tighten that and draw strength from that? That was a rhetorical question. We're not here to therapize you. But just as an example,
I'm sweating right now.
just as an example, that's what I'm sort of likening that to in terms of core, relating sort of core strength in paddleboarding to core strength at parenting.
Yeah.
What is your core? What kind of guides you in your parenting? And are you really kind of as strong in that as you could be right now? Or should you be strengthening that? For some people, maybe it's their spirituality,
Yeah.
maybe it's their friendship, maybe it's their physical health, maybe it's their mental health. What's your core? Maybe it's all of that. And is it as strong as it could be, or do you need to be doing some core work right now?
Well, I think that what comes to mind for me with that part of the struggle, especially with having teenagers, is you continually find yourself talking to them like they're adults. Because they seem like they're adults, and you have these mature conversations, and you go back and forth, and it's easy to forget that they're still children.
Yeah.
They're still a child.
Well, and really truthfully, children until like early 20s when the brain stops finally developing. So,
Right.
yeah, but what does that have to do with core? Your core?
Well, I think it's for me, it's easy to forget what my core is, and my core is that what I mentioned before about those preschool teacher skills. It's hard. It's easy to forget that they're just kids.
Gotcha.
That was my point.
I gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
So those are my personal core muscles I have to work on.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So that was tip number 4. How is it worded?
Paddle with your core.
Paddle with your core. So parent with your core.
Parent with your core.
And I would say you got to figure out what your core is.
You should TM that stuff. Hashtag it.
What? Parent
in
with
a
your
book.
core?
Put it in a book. Parent with your core.
Maybe that'll be my next book.
Even paddleboard parenting. Copyright Jenny Brennan, LICSW.
I think it's a lot to copyright things, or maybe it's a lot to trademark things.
No, yeah, because I think we just did, actually, just by saying it.
I don't think so. All right, well, we're getting
I
off
think
track.
you can, anyway.
Okay.
But no, I really like that analogy. Yeah.
All right,
Strengthen your
thanks.
parenting core. Okay, we are on to tip number 5, which is look at the horizon.
Yes, so when you are learning to paddleboard, apparently your instinct, well, my instinct would be to look down and check my feet and make sure everything's cool and I'm not stepping off the
Don't you
board.
mean look down and check for sharks?
Well, yeah, for real. But that can actually make you lose your balance and wind up in the water. I
Oh.
think, so the more I read about paddleboarding, the more it reminds me of yoga. I think
I guess that
essentially
makes sense.
it's doing yoga on paddleboards. Like when you're doing yoga and you're doing balance poses, you're looking off in the distance and fixing your sight on something, a fixed sort of image, not down at your feet. Same thing with
Yeah.
paddleboarding. And same thing with parenting. You can't sort of be looking down and sort of second guessing yourself every single time. You've got to sometimes sort of stand tall, look ahead, and trust your feet. Trust that they're going to sort of hold you and support you, that you're going to be okay, that you're going to be steadied. And so kind of my question for parents is, what is your horizon? What is that thing that you can look at that's going to steady you, that's going to sort of be your kind of anchor in a way?
Do you think that is akin to like the big picture, like look at the big picture?
Could be, yeah. I think, yeah, for some people that might be it, that this is sort of small moments. I recently talked to someone who something had happened in sort of a parenting instance, and really it felt like the worst thing in the whole world for them. And once we sort of talked it through, we're kind of able to sort of reframe that and realize that this is just really a small blip. It feels like a big thing right now, but really in big picture, small blip. And so sort of instead of focusing on that particular instance, instead of doing that and focusing on sort of the bigger picture, the horizon, kind of where they're headed, what sort of the lesson was from that instance, that really can kind of rebalance everybody.
I think what comes to mind, a couple different analogies or moments of my parenting life where, if I'm, especially recently actually, because every now and then they do get along, our two aliens.
What?
Every now and then. I know, it's weird. But usually they're wrestling or shooting each other with Nerf guns and whatnot. But recently they were, and they've done this before, they were making a bunch of noise, wrestling, giggling, laughing with each other. And, if I'm in the middle of working from home or doing something or where I need sort of quiet, my instinct is to tell them to stop and be quiet. But then I have to go, wait a minute. They're having fun. They're getting along. The issue is mine. Like, that's the horizon. Like, take a step back and they're having really great moments right now. So I'm not going to tell them to stop having fun.
That's a good point.
Deal with it. The other thing that comes to mind too is just, we keep promising a sports parenting episode. It's coming, but it's hard. One of the challenges in sports parenting and youth sports is forgetting that it's just a game and they're just kids. And I think that's what comes to mind when I think of look at the horizon, look at what the kids they're playing a game, they're playing with each other, and they want to have fun. And when you are driving home with them, they don't want to hear about their shortcomings and your criticism. They just want to hear that you had a good time watching them.
Of course.
Right? And so that's what comes to mind for me on this.
Okay, that makes sense. But also, as a side note, please sit on your own side and cheer on your own kids, and don't come sit on my side.
Jenny's parenting pet peeve number one.
Good Lord.
Sit on the right side.
Listen, here's a tip. Ready? If your child plays basketball, there will be 2 benches for the basketball players. Now, they might be across from where the parents sit, or they might be on the same side.
Yes.
But there will be on one side of the court an area for one set of players, and on the other side of the court an area for the other players.
Yes.
Before they start the game, they will warm up on the opposite side. Do not sit.
You teased this recently.
Do not sit on that side.
Yeah.
Sit on the side that your players are sitting on.
So,
if you want to come sit on my side, don't you come sit next to me and make fun of my child. You go sit on your own side and do that. And don't yell when I'm cheering for my child.
Exactly.
Now, I know, big picture, because someone said this the other day, because I asked this on Facebook, is this a pet peeve? And someone was like, no, I just think of the big picture. I think the big picture, these are kids, and I don't want to hear someone heckling my child. So just go do that on your own side.
Right.
It's very easy, especially in basketball, to know which side is which. It's very easier in football. There's signs that say home and signs that say visitor.
It's not that hard.
It's not that hard. In baseball, there's a home dugout and an away dugout.
Right.
Don't come sit on this side. It's also, though, very interesting because it's clear which parents have been ostracized by the other parents.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So
Right. That's a whole other thing.
that's a whole. There was one yesterday who literally clapped from the end of one play
My goodness.
until the beginning of the pitcher's release every
Well,
single time for 7 full innings.
So sometimes he clapped in the windup, and
Yes,
I wasn't cool
that's
with
true.
that. But he was an equal opportunity clapper, and clapped during the windup of his own team, his own pitcher too. So
He did, and yeah, I got to say he was like a metronome. He was a human metronome because that clap was always
he
the
was
same
about
rhythm.
90 beats per minute, I think.
But he had clearly been ostracized by
remember
the other
correctly.
parents. Anyways, we totally got off.
I don't know what I would have done.
Topic there.
Our Jackson's coach didn't do anything. It probably bothered him, but he didn't do anything. I don't know that I could have sat there for 7 innings without saying anything if I was the coach.
Okay, I guess we have lots
Anyway.
to talk about for the youth sports one.
Listen, I think we should take a break.
Okay.
So
Right, because we have ads now.
Yeah, we have ads. Well, we had
Okay.
ads before, but we're going to put an ad right in the middle. So
Okay, all right.
we will be right back.
Okay.
What's up, everybody? My name's Tim from the Shut Up and Dad podcast, and I hope you're enjoying this show. If you're looking for some laughs after you finish listening to this episode, come check out Shut Up and Dad. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and your favorite podcast platform by searching Shut Up and Dad, or simply head to our website, shutupanddad-podcast.com, where you can listen to episodes, read our blog, and find links to our show. That's shutupanddad-podcast.com.
All right, we are back. And where did we leave off, Jenny? Number 5?
No, yes, so that was look at the horizon. So we're on number 6 now.
Number 6, which is stay out of the way.
There are lots of other paddleboarders out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of other parents out there kind of doing their own thing, trying to stay upright, trying to look at the horizon, trying to use their core, trying to, use their leash. Give them space, give them room.
Yeah.
Right? Don't try to shout at them like hold your paddle this way or use your core, look at the horizon, because if they want help, they're gonna ask for it.
Yeah.
If they're drowning, if they're like clinging to their paddle in sheer panic, maybe ask them if they need some help. Like those parents you see. I don't know if you probably don't ever experience this because you're a dad and also because you hate Target, but there are those often moms with young children who are like losing their minds and throwing a temper tantrum in a place like Target. And often other parents kind of look at them all judgy, like, ugh, why can't you control your child? And why is my child was never like that? It can be really powerful if another parent, another paddleboarder is like, hey, need some help. Or mine were like that too.
Right.
Like this sucks, huh?
Well, I love how you just slipped in a little Target reference without much fanfare.
Every episode.
You had to.
I don't think
You
I
had
did
to
on
do
our
it.
last one
I
though.
don't think so.
Yeah, but
It might have been if anybody can find a Target reference in episode 23, let us know.
I don't think it's there.
What was I going to say? Oh, so you, just like you need to find your tether, your leash, you should be open to being someone else's.
Yes.
Right?
Right, for sure, and recognize that. Remember those times that you really struggled on your paddleboard, and perhaps there's a way you can help others. But really, stay out of the way. Steer clear of each other. Give people space to sort of make mistakes. Now, listen, I'm a social worker. I believe pretty wholeheartedly in children's safety and
Yes.
security. So, in those issues, I'm not going to steer clear. I'm going to help it. I'm going to swoop in to help folks, to help the kids, and to help the parents. But in general, let's give each other some space. I sort of I see this play out a lot on social media. There are town pages that can be really great for things like, hey, is the trash delayed this week for Memorial Day?
Right.
Or what time is the July 4th parade? But what I'm seeing it used for a lot lately is, hey, there's some kids in the park throwing wood chips, and they're calling each other jerks. And I don't know who their parents are, but they are awful parents.
Yeah.
And here's a picture of these kids. So
Don't
these
judge
parents,
people like that.
there's a lot of judgment there, and then it
Yeah.
always becomes a big thing and a debate. And
Right.
these are people who are not steering clear of other paddlers.
Well, I like the way you closed out this tip in the article you wrote, what do you want near you when you are paddling, slash parenting, and what do you need to stay away from?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Let's sort of give each other space, and when you're paddling, sort of figure out what you need to steer clear of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That brings us to tip number 7, which is fall the right way.
Right. So
That just reminds me of karate.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
When our boys did karate, one of the first things they learned was to
How to
fall
fall.
the right way. And this
Yeah.
came up recently. Why? With our oldest.
Jackson, he was
I forget
talking
why.
about still knowing, like learning it as like a 5-year-old.
Because I think he fell. He
And
must have
still
fallen in
knowing. I
football
know
or
how to
something. I
fall.
forget how it
Yeah.
came up, and he said, well, yeah, because I learned how to fall the right way in karate. I know how to fall.
Yeah.
I
Shout out
don't know how to fall.
Sensei Jesse.
Yes.
I wonder if he listens. Anyway.
Guess we'll find out if he says, hey, I heard you talk about
Yeah.
me. So fall the right way. So there's this inherent sort of belief in paddleboarding from Greenwater Sports that you're going to fall. You're going to mess up. At some point as a paddleboarder,
No one's perfect.
no one's perfect. You're going to fall. Guess what? As parents, no one's perfect. And just
Right.
today I was counseling someone who was so upset because their kiddo was upset with them. And I said, did you think you were going to get through parenting without making a mistake? Without your kids being mad at you?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, yeah, you're right. Like it's not always going to be perfect sailing. It's not always going to be
Yeah.
I'm standing up on my paddleboard really confident, my core is strong, I'm looking at the horizon. Sometimes I'm going to fall and mess up, and that's okay. So there's a right way to fall when you're on a paddleboard.
Well,
and I
and
think
you-
there's a right way to fall when you're parents.
Absolutely. And you write, what is your plan for how you'll get back on the board the next time you fall off? And that's important to think about. How are you going to learn from what happened? How are you going to learn from the moment when you fell?
And what are you going to do what are you actually going to do when you fall? Are you going to acknowledge it? Are you going to ask for help to get back up?
Right. Well, it reminds me of something I say at work when I'm training people or, in a situation where I'm, coaching somebody at work. I say the phrase, sometimes the best practices are born out of the worst mistakes. Right.
Okay.
So you develop really good skill sets at certain things because of a past experience when it didn't go so well.
Sure.
Like some of the best things I'm really good at work are because of mistakes I made in the past.
And so that probably holds true for parenting too. So
I think so.
we all mess up. What can we learn from each time we mess up?
Right.
And what can we do when we mess up? Do we sort of fall on our paddleboard and then be like, I quit, I give up, I stink, I'm always going to be terrible at this, I can't do this? Or do we say like, oh, well, this is why that happened,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sorry that this happened, and here's what I'm going to do to make it not happen again, and then I'm going to give it another try.
And I think that's falling the right way. I
Right.
think that's saying, okay, this happened. I said the wrong thing to my kid when we were arguing, right? But I'm not going to, get all sad about it or whatever. I'm going to learn from it. And I think that, especially now with our kids are older, we talked about having conversations with them. You can have a conversation with them and say, what I said to you, I wasn't really crazy about, and I shouldn't have said that. So I'm going to try real hard not to say it that way again. So you're following the right way, in a transparent way with your kid.
Yeah, I think that's a good take on it.
Cool.
So that's tip number 8. Nope, 7. Fall the right way. Now we're on
who
tip number 8.
can't count now?
Me.
You always mess
I am
with
hungry.
me for not counting. You're what?
I am hungry.
You're hungry. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we gotta get going here. Number 8 is
It's all going to unravel if I'm hungry.
You don't want to get in the hangry realm. Okay, tip number 8 is ride waves you can handle.
So with paddleboarding, you don't want to sort of head out into waves that are too big for you. In parenting, we can't always predict that, right?
I was just going to say, how do you know?
You don't know. In paddleboarding, you have like weather forecasting. in parenting, you don't always have weather forecasting. Sometimes you have sort of parents who are a little bit ahead of you in the process and can give you a little tip on things that might come up. But in general, that's not always going to happen. So what can you do when you're finding that like the water's too choppy for you? You don't feel kind of skilled to navigate this. It's a little too unsteady for you. Where can you turn for help?
Yeah.
What can you do in those times to kind of help you get through those waves that you can't handle? Sometimes that might mean you sort of need to like get down on your paddleboard and just kind of sit down, or lay down instead of standing up. But you're still doing it, right? You're just kind of getting closer to your foundation there. So who can you turn to? What can you turn to in those moments where things feel really rocky for you? And I think it's good to kind of know that ahead of time.
Well, I think that, ride waves you can handle in the paddleboarding world, I think is a lot easier to abide by than in the parenting world, because you really never know. So I think the tip here is know how you're going to handle it when you face a wave that you can't handle, or some sort of parenting situation that's going to be really tough. I think that you talk about in some of your other articles about the different stages and, what it means to have a child in middle school for the first time. And I think being prepared for these new waves, it's like experiencing a new stage of childhood for the first time as a parent, right? We've never had, a 13-year-old, and he's experiencing these different things, and we are experiencing it fresh, new with him for the first time as well.
I agree.
So we're learning.
Right. Correct.
Anything else on tip number 8?
I think that we covered it. So ride waves you can handle, and then sort of in small sort of text there is, and figure out who to turn to when the waves get too big.
Right. Okay. Tip number 9 is watch the wind.
So very similar to number 8, this ride waves you can handle. So Green Mountain, I really want to call them Green Mountain.
You just want some coffee.
I don't even like coffee.
I know.
Do they make something else, Green Mountain? Do they make cookies or something? Why am I thinking about them?
Coffee.
It's
I think
just
they make
coffee.
tea, Jenny.
Okay, maybe it's tea. Yeah. I'm also tired, so I could benefit from some tea.
You need cookies and a nap.
Cookies and a nap sounds lovely.
That
Watch
just
the
makes
wind.
me think of John Panette, raviolis and a nap.
So Green Water Sports
R.I.P.
says, I actually kind of just alluded to this. They say paddling prone. So it's a skill that paddleboarders use when the wind and the waves get too strong. They kind of drop to their belly and their sort of prone position and paddle that way. Do you know when you need to paddle prone? Do you beat yourself up over needing to paddle prone sometimes? Sometimes that wind, sort of similar to the waves, is going to be too much for you. And then do you know how to kind of make it through those times? What's your plan? Are you going to go see a therapist? Are you going to do a family therapist? Are you going to talk to your child's teachers? Are you going to talk to your friends? Are you going to talk to family? Are you going to change rules? Are there going to be consequences? What's that going to look like for you when the winds get really, really scary?
I think preparation is a big part of this, and you wrote, notice the signs of changing conditions. And I think, like, if you compare you and I as parents, you do this way better than I do. I feel like I don't do a good job anticipating what could happen, what could go wrong, or a situation that, might need a certain response. I think you do a good job with that. I don't know. I don't do a good job with that.
Can you give an example?
I don't know. All I can think of is moments where you say, "I told you that this was going to happen."
So every day.
Every day.
Every day.
No, I don't even know. I can't even think of something right now.
Okay.
But,
all right. Where do you think I get that ability from? Because I'm not asking for like a compliment here. I'm genuinely curious about what you're talking about. So do you have an idea about why that is?
I think your dad's like that.
Just knowing.
Yeah, I think it's just being prepared for. It might be the pessimist.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Is it this sort of element of being like always expecting the worst.
Yeah. So
So-
you're prepared for that.
You're prepared for the worst. It's
Right.
funny.
So how do you respond to what if the worst happens?
Because I have to shut my phone off, so I don't have it in front of me. But I posted I have a daily quote every day on the Changing Perspectives Instagram, and the
Mhm.
other one was about optimism versus the one the other day was about pessimism
Yes.
versus optimism, and
I
I
saw that
shared
one.
that I am a pessimist, and I think always have been. I always expect the worst,
Absolutely.
so that I feel like I'm never disappointed, and then when something great happens, I'm super excited.
So maybe that's where
I
it
think
comes from.
maybe I think a lot of people have that approach. I don't necessarily think it's a healthy approach. I don't think it's a great approach. It means that you're always sort of bracing yourself
Right.
and anticipating that something bad is going to happen, right?
Right,
So I'm
right.
wondering, is that your viewpoint of me there? Is that maybe because I'm always expecting the worst?
Maybe, but I think it exhibits itself in preparation. Maybe it's born out of pessimism, but I think it's often helpful. And I often this makes me think of one of your members of your mom squad who always seems to have a bag full of everything you need in whatever situation. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So is that someone who is always watching the wind or always aware of
I think being prepared for the winds changing, right? And
yes.
Just in case, we could watch a forecast, so to speak, but who knows? Life's going to throw you a curveball, and you got to be ready to deal with it. And as a parent, that means being prepared, I guess, right?
Well, and so the question is then, what does that mean for you as a parent? How can you be prepared for when things go bad, when things get a little too dicey for you, when it's the end of the school year and there's a million things, or when a new camp pops up and you need
Suddenly.
rides for your child,
Whoa.
to everything. I just had to put out a little call to action saying I can only do 2 out of the 8 pickups and drop-offs. Is there anyone that can help me? So that's kind of watching the wind
So
there.
you wrote, we'll move on to the last tip in a second. I just wanted to read what you wrote here. Sometimes all we can do is drop to our bellies, let go of the paddle, and use our hands to steer us through the rough parts. What do you mean by use our hands? What is that in reference to?
Well, the paddleboard tip is sometimes you lose your paddle.
That's literally what it
Paddling
is
prone.
on
Mhm.
green sports.
Yeah, like you
green
sort of
water
put your
sports.
paddle down and you paddle with your hands because you've got a little more control, a little more stability there.
Yeah.
You're kind of getting back to basics,
I was just going
kind
to
of
say
dialing
maybe,
it in.
and if you compare that to a parenting situation, maybe go with your gut, go with your instincts, right?
Kind of go back. I would say go back to basics.
Yeah.
Kind of do what feels kind of right and natural for you.
Yeah.
Safer. Hmm.
Okay. Cool. I think we tie that up well, hopefully.
We'll see. I
We'll
don't know.
see.
I'm not quite sure how this is translating to an audio format versus an article.
Okay. Well,
A lot of imagery here, so I'm not quite sure how it's going. We'll find out.
I think we're good at imagery. We'll see what happens. Let's finish this up. So tip number 10 is look after your board and your paddle.
Right. So here we are again, back at self-care is not selfish, right? That's what it's
I
talking
wasn't
about
sure
here.
where you were going with that
Yeah,
one.
so Green Mountain, good grief. Good grief. Green water
All right,
sports.
Charlie Brown.
I almost said good gravy. See, I'm hungry. Green water sports. Also, green water, it doesn't sound appealing. I think that's why
No,
I'm
it
having a
sounds
hard
like
time with it.
what you should not be putting
Right,
your
it should be
paddleboard
like
in.
blue water sports. Maybe there is a blue water sports that was already taken. So green water sports says that you've got to sort of take care of your paddleboard.
Yeah.
You have to check it for cracks, for dents, to see if it needs any repairs. That's Everett. Everett is also unsettled tonight.
Yeah, he is like in rare form
Yes.
today.
So I think we actually have a woodland creature living in our backyard, and I think he really wants to get out and see it, or
he
it's a
really
cat.
does.
I think there's actually a cat living in our yard.
He'd like to live in the backyard if we let him.
Oh, well, he's going to. That's where he's headed. He's moving into the backyard.
Chill out, Everett.
So what are the kind of I think we need to check ourselves for cracks, for damage, for
Right,
needs for
right.
repairs as parents. We need to sort of look after ourselves and look after our paddles and figure out what we need. That self-care is not selfish.
Right. Of course, that's huge. And we talked about that in managing your anxiety, managing your own grief. Those are important elements in any situation, but especially as a parent.
Yes,
Yes.
for sure.
So how are you going to deal with Everett, the paddleboard, as a paddleboarding parent?
Well, I'm going
Listen.
to let him move outside.
We have to leave this in because it's just indicative of what we're dealing with.
He's our like challenging teenager tonight.
He really
so really,
is.
what's going on with him? The winds have changed. We did not anticipate this. It's just a regular night in our house, and
Yep.
he is usually very happy to sort of curl up on the couch with us and like
He
sleep.
snores through most episodes.
Yes.
But
So
now
what
he's
is
being
different?
like-
Well, over the past few days, every time we put him outside, he like goes to a certain area of the fence and sniffs around. So I think that there are probably a bunny family out there, and
something.
a few times
Similar.
I have seen a cat at the end of our driveway. So I think a cat might be living under our shed, and he just wants to go. He has some friends out there, and I think he just wants to be with his friends.
Yes.
And he's bored in here with his parents and wants to be with his friends. And his two sister dogs are like, whatever, we don't care about whatever's in the backyard.
They're just napping right now.
They're totally just sleeping. They're
Just
fine,
chilling.
and he just wants to go play with his new friends, or eat his new friends.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, tip number 10 really is about that self-care. You're right. We need to constantly take care of ourselves as parents. It's kind of simple, but if you're not taking care of yourself as a parent, how can you really be there 100% for your kids?
Well, you can't be. You're gonna be short-tempered. You're going to be grumpy. You're not going to be listening to what they're saying. You're going to be
Right.
sort of turning away. This is reminding me of a reality TV show. I don't remember which one it was because
Big
it was
surprise.
many years ago. But maybe it was like a wife swap or like the nanny or something. But a dad had watched sort of the season or the episode and saw how unavailable he was for his children. That he was
I
always,
vaguely
is this ringing a
remember
bell?
this. Yeah.
That he was like always on his phone and always dismissing the kids and always too busy for them. And he didn't realize that until he saw that. And that was because he was stressed and overworked, and work was a big part of his life.
Yeah.
And kind of being able to see that was pretty life-changing for him. So what can you be doing right now to really kind of look after your board, look after your paddle, look after yourself? Are you doing enough? Because
Right.
that really does translate to who you are and how you are as a parent.
Absolutely.
So that self-care is not selfish.
No.
We can't paddleboard our way through parenting if we are broken. So
Right.
how can you look after your own board and paddle?
So that's it. That's the 10 tips.
Yeah, so the 10 tips sort of
To
again
recap.
To recap, as I typically do when I'm done with a piece of paper, I throw it on the floor. Probably
I
your
can
number
do it.
one pet peeve
I
about
have
me.
it right here.
Um,
So number 1 is use a leash. Number 2 is make sure your paddle is the right way.
mhm.
Face the right way is number 3. That refers to your paddle board itself.
Mhm.
Number 4 is paddle with your core, right? Rely on your core strengths as a parent. Number 5, look at the horizon. Keep the
Yes.
horizon in your sights.
I have the rest.
Go.
Number 6 is stay out of the way. Kind of steer clear of other parents. Figure out who or other paddle boarders. Figure out who
Mhm.
you kind of want to be paddleboarding near. Fall the right way. Anticipate that you're going to mess up. You're going to fall off that paddleboard sometimes. So how are you going to fall in a safe way?
Mhm.
And how are you going to get yourself back up on the board? Ride waves that you can handle and figure out what to do when they get too big for you. Watch the wind. So kind of try to know the forecast and be prepared for what's ahead. And don't be afraid to sort of paddle prone when things get a little bit too rocky for
Yeah.
you. It's kind of just drop to your
Use your hands.
your knees, or you're prone.
Basic instincts.
Basic instincts, and just kind of paddle through the rough stuff until it gets smoother, because it will get smoother. The winds will always die down. And then finally, number 10, look after your board and your paddle.
Awesome.
Self-care is not selfish. So 10 tips there to hopefully try to help
Yeah.
you bring some more balance to your life in terms of parenting, with regards to parenting. And
Well, I really love this article, Jenny. I think it's
thank you.
it's a nice comparison to what we parents often deal with at all different stages. From when you have kids in diapers to when you have kids with body odor. You had a quote from Abigail Spencer. I don't know who that is, but I like what it says here. This is how you close out the article. Unless you paddle for the wave, you'll never know if you could catch it. But once you do, ride it as long as you can, love as long as you can. Abigail Spencer.
So I take that as don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Or you can be afraid, right? But sort of head towards that fear, kind of lean into it, right? This quote is a very kind of lean into it quote.
Right.
You've got this. If you sort of follow these 10 tips and you've sort of figured out what your core is, how to sort of stay balanced, how to look ahead, how to fall, who your support people are, who you want to stay tethered to, how to take care of your board, you're going to be okay.
Yeah. All right. Anything else for us today, Jenny?
I think that was it.
Paddleboard parenting.
Paddleboard
Check it out.
parenting. And maybe someday I'll actually try paddleboarding.
Yeah, me too.
Not in open water, not where there are sharks,
Or
not
gators.
where there are gators. Can
Not
I
in green
paddleboard?
water.
Can I paddleboard in someone's in-ground pool?
Yep, that's what you want. That's not too deep.
That's not too deep, and also
Although
I
we
can
just
fall and
learned
not hit my head
recently
on the side.
That you just float.
Yes,
We're in a 10-foot in-ground
I guess
pool.
I am naturally buoyant.
You're naturally buoyant. It was the weirdest
I literally
thing.
thought everybody was.
I don't think so.
So our oldest was like, "How are you just floating and not kicking?" I was
you
like,
weren't treading water at all.
"No," and I said, "This is how you float." And he said no.
Me too.
And I thought so it wasn't until you swam over and you were like,
Yeah.
"No, seriously, you're not kicking your feet or anything." I
Like, how
thought
are you
everybody
just
just
sitting
floated
there?
like that.
No, it's an active.
But our youngest is also naturally
He's-
buoyant.
Yeah, you guys.
I don't know, maybe I have to look that up.
I think you're.
If you know
superheroes.
what that's about, please tell us.
I think you guys have superpowers.
Or maybe we have more salt in our bodies or
Maybe
something. I don't know. But I'm naturally buoyant.
you are.
So I probably would survive in the open water, which is a terrible movie. Open
Great
water.
movie.
No, it's terrible.
It
It
but you
totally
watched the whole
reinforced
thing.
all of my fears
I
about
can't
sharks.
believe if our buddy Brian is listening, he is going to lose
He doesn't
his
listen.
mind.
He said, "I'm not listening to you guys talk for an hour."
That's funny. Well, we can talk about him then. I didn't realize. I have to tell him that you've seen Open Water, but not Jaws. He's gonna lose his mind when he hears that. Anyway.
Oh, I don't know why you let me watch that terrible movie.
I don't know.
It's horrifying.
Maybe I tricked you into
Really
watching
quickly, it's about a couple who go out on a scuba trip on their island resort
it
vacation.
by themselves.
No, they get left behind.
Oh, that's right.
They're
that's
with a
right.
group, and Yaman, everybody leaves them behind. The tour group guy doesn't remember that they're there. Nobody else misses them, so they're just left in open water. And guess what happens? Sharks.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
it's a great movie.
no, it's awful.
Okay.
I think she gets eaten.
But guess
and he
what?
survives,
Jaws is
which would
better.
be our luck.
Jaws is better.
No.
I just wanted to tell you, one of the best movies of all time.
They're both about sharks.
Just
I'm
so
all
we're clear.
set.
Okay.
So I'll be paddleboarding where there are no sharks.
In a pool.
In a pool, and then when I fall off, I will just float because
Just
I'm
float
naturally
there,
buoyant.
because you have a superpower.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that is going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much for listening. You probably shut this off 5 minutes ago. You can learn more on this by
4:55.
heading out to changingperspectivesblog.com and checking out Paddleboard Parenting, a blog article written by Jenny. Or check out Green Water Sports if you want to learn more about actual paddleboarding. Please follow us on Facebook, guys, at Changing Perspectives Podcast, and on Instagram at Changing Perspectives Blog. Once again, you can check out our website by going to changingperspectivesblog.com or send us an email to changingpodcast@gmail.com. New episodes are released every Monday and Thursday, and you can check out that pinned post over on Dizzy Bird Studios on Facebook, facebook.com/Dizzy Bird Studios. Go ahead and subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode, and we will see you next time. Say bye, Jenny.
Bye, Jenny.
The Changing Perspectives podcast is produced, recorded, and edited by Dizzy Bird Studios, Whitman, Massachusetts. Visit Dizzy Bird Studios on Facebook, facebook.com/Dizzy Bird Studios.